Welcome to the Filmcast review of Meg 2, The Trench. According to IMDb, the plot is as follows. A research team encounters multiple threats while exploring the depths of the ocean, including a malevolent mining operation. This is the second movie in the Meg franchise. It's directed by Ben Wheatley, who heretofore is primarily known for making small indie films, psychological
small
thrillers.
Indie mindfucks, yeah, like Kill List and Skyrise, yeah.
I really loved his action movie Free Fire. I thought that was a blast.
That was fun.
Had a lot of fun.
We all loved it. I own that actually on Blu-ray.
Wow.
Yeah,
which is not something that's common for Jeff Kanata movies. But the thing I want to mention as context for this movie is there was a time in the 2010s when every single movie that got released in theaters had Chinese characters in it. I don't know if you guys recall that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because Hollywood saw a lot of money to be made in China. And China only allowed a certain number of American films to be released in China each year. But you could get around that rule if you were co-financed by a Chinese company. And so the Meg 1 was co-financed by a Chinese company. And then slowly that has gone away because China has, allowed fewer and fewer films, and the conforming to Chinese standards, like having certain content restrictions, has become onerous, and the upside has become limited. And so we've seen less and less of that over time.
Mm-hmm.
But Meg 2 is one of those movies, co-financed by a Chinese company. Not only that, but it has one of the biggest Chinese action stars right now. His last 5 movies have made around $800 million. His name is Wu Jing. And this is a movie that is basically attempted to be made for an international audience. Like it's made by multiple countries. It's made for countries all around the world. And it is one of the few areas of U.S.-Chinese cooperation that exists today. And
the one thing we can agree on is Jason Statham fighting giant sharks.
Exactly.
Yes.
I just think it's, regardless of how good the movie is, which we're about to get into, I think it's just notable. Like it's culturally notable that this is one of those, like a relic of a different time period, but in which, there is a lot of investment from different companies to making this a success around the world. So anyway, some of my overall thoughts on Meg 2 from a financial standpoint, but Devindra Hardawar, you are the biggest cheerleader of the Meg on this podcast. I am curious if Meg 2 The Trench lived up to your expectations.
I think you guys got to put this all in context. First of all, I really like the first Meg, especially when I do remember when we reviewed it, and we had reviewed Skyrise, like very, or it was a Skyscraper. We reviewed that like very recently, like right before it. One was about a guy going all the way up to save his family. The other one was about a guy going all the way down to save his family or family types. And I really like the Meg, and it just like really hit on a lot of things because this is a giant shark. Jason Statham. He gave me everything I wanted. I think the context for the Meg 2 is that it was announced that Ben Wheatley was directing this movie, and my brain could not process that fact. What could the director of The Kill List and Free Fire, what would he do with a giant shark movie? Then we saw the first trailer, which we heard a bit before. I think that's a great trailer. That's a perfect trailer. Great use of Barracuda. Really sells the concept. giving you some free, like great shots of Jason Statham, like using his legs to stop being eaten by a giant shark, like everything. And the final movie, not nearly as good as that trailer. But I will say, I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I think it's maybe a misguided one, and maybe one that was influenced by like a lot of different factors, because the first half of the movie is a lot of like going underwater, trying to figure out this weird mining operation is happening. And then the second half of the movie is giant shark stuff. And I feel like you could have just cut half an hour out of this movie. Just give me the giant shark stuff, which I think is a lot of fun. And Ben Wheatley has a lot of fun with that in the last act. And this would have been a better movie. But I think right now it is like part a slog and part like, then we get to the fun time. So yeah, I didn't hate it, but there's clearly a missed opportunity to make like a tighter giant shark movie here.
Jeff Kanata, Meg 2 The Trench currently has a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Man.
Do you think it deserves this rating? What'd you think of Meg 2?
I guess you could say my thoughts on the Meg 2 The Trench are best summed up in the form of a limerick. I'm not proud of this one.
You also, that's Ben Wheatley's statement on this movie. So
Indeed.
You get much more than an eighth in before there's anything to put your faith in. Because my benchmark is the big trench shark, not how they use Jason Statham.
I was waiting for that rhyme.
Wow.
Waiting for the rhyme. Yes.
Not your worst, Jeff. Not your worst.
Waiting for that drop. Yeah.
I agree a lot with what Devindra said. I don't know. Is it a terrible movie?
I've seen so many worse movies than this.
There's definitely worse movies. There are so many baffling decisions in this movie, and I want to get into so many of them in spoilers, specific questions that make no sense to me whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, on a structural level, exactly what Devindra said. The first half of this movie, these are two completely different movies that are smushed together.
And they have no relation to each other either. It's
very little relationship to each other. One of them, the second one, is the movie that I signed up to see.
Yes.
The first one is this self-serious, humorless slog that has very little to do with sharks. You know, it's like this weird eco-terrorism movie, I guess.
It's like an aliens movie almost. It's like a space movie because it involves suits and ships and stuff. Yeah.
It is so weird. And then the movie wakes up and goes, oh, right. We're this goofy giant shark movie.
There's a sign on the wall that says giant shark. Got to get back to the giant shark.
We really should get to that goofy, fun, wacky stuff that people want to see. So maybe we should make that happen now. And then it kicks into a gear and it's like, for me, it was too little too late. But I finally was like, oh, here's the not taking itself too seriously. Let's put Statham on a jet ski. You know, like that's what I signed up for.
Creative camera work, good, like decent action. Yeah.
Yeah, I had fun. But again, some very specific things that I do not understand. And we'll get to in spoilers. But
yes,
I had fun with the first Meg. I liked it way more than I thought I would. This is not anywhere near as good an experience, a fun experience. It's so weird. It feels like it needs to do all this heavy lifting. It does not need to do. There are setups that pay off in the most limp, lifeless, boring way. It's what are you even doing, Meg 2, the trench?
Yeah.
Why is it about the trench? It shouldn't be about the trench.
It's about rare earth minerals, everybody.
Get rid of the trench. Anyway, it's not good. It's not worth seeing. I think the first Meg is genuinely worth seeing. This is not.
Mm-hmm. It did make me wonder, has Jason Statham been in a space movie yet? Put Jason Statham in space. I want to see that ass being kicked.
I guess so. Spoken like someone who hasn't seen that Fast and Furious movie where they.
Well, was he in space, sir? Was he there? No.
It's a fair point. He did not go to space.
He did not.
That's true. I mean, people did go to space in that movie. Okay. I'm going to say this whole Ocean Gate thing, you know, with the Titanic submersible and everything like that. As a result of that whole thing, I've done a lot of reading about underwater submersibles, and now my brain is kind of
research.
Is kind of that asshole who like shows up at the screening. And starts talking about all the stuff that doesn't make any sense in the movie.
I mean, you don't need to do that research to be like, why is this a manned ship going to the trench? We don't send manned ships to other planets, you know? Like, yeah.
Well, just like, first of all, the water pressure under, you know. Okay,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk because there's some plot spoilery things we should talk about. Okay. Here's my thoughts. I think this movie is getting a bad rap. I think
I agree.
Low
score.
Yes. I think critics smell blood in the water, as it were, and they're just they're going after it. And I think the movie is a perfectly okay action movie. Mm-hmm. There's enough action scenes in this movie that are like pretty cool, pretty inventive, decently enough done that I think you will get what you're looking for.
Even in the first half, they do kind of a riff on a scene from Sunshine. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, there's some.
I like that.
I think there's multiple cool action scenes. So yeah, but is it a good movie? No. Is it a movie?
What
that I
is a
think you
good
should-
movie? You know?
what is even a movie?
Yes.
But yeah,
Better or worse than Hidden Strike?
is it better or worse than Hidden Strike? I think it actually looks better than Hidden Strike. Like, there's a few points where the CG in this movie looks dodgy, but Hidden Strike is like on Netflix is 80% bad CG, or there's tons of bad CG. Whereas Meg 2 is like the occasional bad CG, that's kind of, or the occasional rough scene that looks very bad. I actually also think that this movie was kind of close to being a good movie.
Yes.
If it had spent a little bit more time developing these characters, maybe Jeff, if it had made a few tweaks here and there, developed the characters a little bit more. Also, Jeff, if it had maybe understood what it was more, like, and had like, if the whole movie had been the second half of the movie, like that might have been interesting, right?
Honestly, just cut out some of the first part of the movie, and you have a better movie. Like, that's it. You don't even need to add anything.
Yeah, maybe, but
yeah.
Anyway,
Dude, I mean, I want to say something, but I should save it for second.
All right, so let's just. So overall, it sounds like none of us hated the movie, but none of us thought it was particularly good, and we have much more to discuss in the spoilers. All right, Jeff Kanata, you had some big issues with this movie.
I did. I mean, this movie. How much better would it have been if it was called Meg 2 Fun Island? Come on, that's a better movie. You're gonna want to see Fun Island.
Better title, better movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So many things that I do not get in this movie. I don't even know where to start. We spent so much time establishing the clicker for the Meg, for his special Meg, which has no payoff whatsoever. The payoff is the epilogue. After the crisis has been averted, he's going to sit in the water and see if the clicker works one last time. There's no point at which the clicker helps them. You spend so much setup time setting up the clicker.
That's just that's a scene for Wu Jing. That's what it is.
Okay.
Well, also,
look how much of a badass he is.
the Meg is about to eat him, and then he diverts it, so it does help him out.
At the end?
Yeah, at the end.
But that is after the crisis has already been. That is the epilogue. That is we have solved the problem, and now he's just going to sit there and see if the clicker works again. It's literally It's a completely flaccid
bad construction
payoff.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. The weirdest thing about this movie is that it's not about the Meg. It's about a squid that is not established in any way, that just appears.
It's not really about the
Worse
squid.
than
The squid's
that.
just there.
Worse than that. Where did those dog monsters come from?
Dog dinosaurs. They're under their trench dinosaurs.
In what universe? Okay. So much of the final act is people on Fun Island dealing with the dog monsters.
Yes.
But there is no connection between the dog monsters and anything else in the world.
Well, clearly, Jeff, they came from the thermocline, which, for the purposes of this movie, is basically a different dimension.
But
so it's
we
prehistoric
don't see
animals
them.
are down there. Yeah.
The only way that they are sourced in this movie at all is in the little prelude that we see, where we see 65 million years ago a T-Rex gets eaten by the shark.
No, they're the creatures that are picking them off as they're getting to the base. It's those creatures.
Right, but so we built Fun Island on an island that has those creatures?
No, they came up from the thermocline with the Megs.
The thermocline was breached, you see.
Yes.
And then the things came up.
Did I miss a moment where they
No, but you're right. You're right that they don't explain that.
Yes.
There's no
We
connection
assume they came up.
whatsoever the
We
movie
assume they
makes
came up.
between a giant shark and a giant squid and then land mammals.
I think the idea is that the thermocline has perilous dangers within.
Prehistoric
humankind
monsters
is not possibly prepared for, and once it's breached, it unleashes multiple Megs.
The thermocline is under the water, right?
Yes.
Those dog creatures are aquatic.
Yes. They were there.
Yes.
They were there. They were the things.
They were
chasing them.
at the underwater base. Yeah. Now here's the thing: is you know,
they're think of them more like dinosaurs.
I think
Jeff.
your
Like
complaint
they were
has. I
dinosaurs.
think your complaint has a lot of merit, Jeff.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
because you're right that it doesn't. The movie doesn't
It's such a
explain it.
weird.
How do they know how to walk on land? Shouldn't their bones? Shouldn't they? Yeah, shouldn't it be
It
hard.
makes
for them?
no
Yeah.
damn sense whatsoever, and we're in like a different movie all of a sudden, where it's like
You're in Jurassic Park.
we're in Jurassic
World.
Park. It's Jurassic Park. It is literally has the whole squid sequence is fun and goofy fun, but I'm like, at what point did this movie decide that the squid was a thing? There's no point at which the squid becomes a thing. It just happens. There's
Jeff, when you give me giant shark, I'm like, we're back for a sequel. I'm gonna need more than a giant
then
shark.
make the movie about how there's also a giant squid. And like make the movie about the peril that we encounter at the end. It's never this movie spends so much time establishing the bad humans that are mining the sea minerals at the bottom so we can all put them in our phones.
Yeah.
But like, and then it just goes, you know what? We're not really about that.
We're not going to discuss that ever.
That's not what this movie is about.
I do like the way the movie
characters, huge characters, major characters that literally do nothing for an hour of this movie, and then are vital completely.
Yes,
take center stage at the end of the. It's such a weird. Feels like two completely different movies.
It does
that don't have any relationship to each other. And one of them is actually fun, and the other one is I've been there, I've seen it, I've done it. It's not interesting at all. And then there's like a whole sequence where Jason Statham does an action sequence to be an eco-terrorist that has no relevance to anything at all.
Well, no, they are stopping bad people doing stuff in the ocean, right? So he is the most useful eco climate activist ever. It's weird. There's a lot of things that don't go anywhere. I want to say giant squid. They hint that like they are setting that up early on. I was like, there's a giant squid down here. Can't wait to see that. That'll be fun. And I don't know about you guys. You probably did not see this movie in 3D, but my screening ended up being in 3D. And this was a pretty fun 3D movie. Because they certainly like lean into things jumping out at you at certain points, and like the tech was like fine enough. I hear your complaints, Jeff, but giant squid is cool. That's all.
I guess. And giant squid that really desire. I don't know. I'll shut up now. I just thought that the movie didn't make any sense at all.
Let's talk about some of the fun things about the movie. I actually thought the whole sequence that takes place, all the first act stuff, I thought was pretty cool. The underwater dodging the explosions and all that stuff, and then needing to travel on the ocean floor, which makes no sense, all the way to the base. Like all that stuff was good. I thought it was actually
those suits must be very strong.
Pretty well done. Yeah. And then, and as we described it, Jeff, like the second half is like pretty fun. It's reminds me of like Piranha, the Alex Aja movie. You know, like there is like a lot of fun, campy stuff there. So
why were they still funding them to go down and explore the trench?
They needed the tech.
But why were they cool with them going on an expedition if they didn't want anyone to find the thing that they built down there?
A lot of good questions going on here, Jeff. Like, first of all, why are there even manned missions to this area when robots could do the work? You know, like why put human lives at risk for any of this? So,
the only thing we want is for them to not find the station we built down there. Let's fund an expedition where they go right down there. Doesn't make any sense to me.
As I mentioned in the pre-spoiler section, the thing that really bothered me is like, there's a reason we don't go down there in general. It's because the amount of pressure is too high. You need a very specific submersible to be able to survive. Usually a steel ball. Like not some oblong shaped thing. That's the one that got destroyed. That's the one that got destroyed in the Ocean Gate. It's like literally that shape is like, and you know, there's no room to move around. It's like anyway, and then there's no radio waves. Radio waves can't really travel very well underwater. So the whole time I'm like, how are they communicating?
That's true.
And then the pressure will crush a person, and it was hilarious because there is a scene in this movie that is like from Event Horizon. I don't know if you guys saw the movie Event Horizon, where
I'm thinking more Sunshine because that is right out of there too. But yeah,
well, in Event Horizon, there's a scene where basically like a character needs to
Go through space.
Needs to go through space. He's in a
Yes.
space station. He needs to like jump through the vacuum of space.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, you need to like exhale
All the oxygen.
all your gases because otherwise they're going to be ripped out of you. You know, like, and he's exhaling. And you know, and yeah, I mean that scene didn't make that much sense. But it made way more sense than whatever the hell is going on in this movie.
Listen, you just gotta push
gotta get
the air out of
water
your
in your
sinuses.
nasal cavity. That's what you gotta do.
He's like he's got to accept, and then he starts like bleeding from his nose, and this woman is like explaining the science of this to the guy's daughter, and he's like, yeah, he's getting all the gases out of his mouth so that he's not crushed, and it's like he would already be crushed. He's at the bottom of the ocean. Okay, sorry.
No, it's great.
Rant over. I won't.
That
say
is the
anything
point
about
where I
that.
realized this movie was like just like it's treating it like a space movie. Logic be damned. So
I'm so sick of the little kid that stows away on the like. How bad at expeditioning do you have to be to not notice the little kid on the expedition? You know,
until you're like halfway through the expedition. But
yes,
it's true.
These things are very small. These submersibles, you're not going to have a little kid's space. You know.
You weren't deeply moved by Jason Statham's quest to become a better father, Jeff Kanata?
No.
He's a sweet character in these movies, at least.
I do think the movie does lose a little bit in from Meg 1. Like Meg 1, Jason Statham had a romantic interest who dies off screen in the time between Meg 1 and Meg 2. And that actually, I thought they actually had decent chemistry, and that actually is a decent part of the first film. That's all gone in this movie. And, you know, this is a decent, you know, first movie for Wu Jing as an action star. But, you know, he's only okay in this movie, I thought. Like, he didn't have that much
He didn't have anything to do. Like, he just got to be kind of a hapless. It's very comedic at times. Like, he gets to have a lot of comedy scenes, but not much direct action. He's a big action star.
I think people like don't understand how big of a deal he is. He directed and starred in Wolf Warrior 1 and 2. He starred in Wandering Earth, and also the Battle of Lake. What is it? The Battle at Lake Changjin. These are massive movies in China. They grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. And we have seen people successfully make the leap from China to the U.S. Jackie Chan being the biggest one, but I don't know, man. I don't know that people are going to be clamoring for more Wu Jing after this one. Unfortunately, you know, like I don't know.
I thought
Jeff,
he was pretty charming.
What did you think of Wu Jing? He's almost like a co-lead in this movie.
Yeah, I think he's pretty charming, actually. And all the stuff that he gets to do in the third act, he doesn't have shit to do in the first act, but he has a lot of fun in the third act, and they pair him off with a different character altogether, and you know he's having more fun. That whole sequence with the helicopter, trying to take the helicopter off. Or take off with the helicopter. I thought that was pretty fun.
My favorite moment in the final action sequence was when two of the characters are like running away from the enemy, and they finally reach safety, and they've reached the building where the other people are being held hostage.
Yeah,
like,
that was funny.
That was a great moment. I was like, I haven't really seen anything like that. So there's a handful of nice.
The revelation.
The idea though that you'd stick a gas nozzle in your helicopter and it would not come out. It would hold the helicopter down rather than pop out, whatever.
You know, that's the thing. The reveal that DJ now knows how to fight and swim. I think it's very funny if you remember the mythos of the first movie. Like there's fun stuff there. My man Cliff Curtis, give this guy a ship to captain. Basically, like he is just always there. Love seeing him. Like it's a lot of people I just enjoy seeing.
I remember listening to about 50 commentaries for Mission Impossible Fallout from Chris McQuarrie, and he was saying how when they were watching Fallout and they were saying like, oh, people aren't invested in the crew. You know, people aren't invested in Benji and all the people being together. Benji and Luther and Ethan being together. So they wrote up this whole opening sequence where they get the plutonium from this suspicious buyer. And I do think that does its job. It's like to reintroduce you to the crew. And I actually think this movie is missing that. Like, I think it's like, hey, here's a reminder of who the people from the first movie are. Here's what their relationship is. Nope, we got to forget about any of that. They don't do any of that. They just go straight to, like, we got to get to the action scene. And unfortunately, I think the movie suffers because of it. So anyway, all that said, at the end of the day, it is impressive that Ben Wheatley made a movie.
I still don't understand how Ben Wheatley made this movie, but here we are. Ben Wheatley's Meg 2.
thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.